Modo Marcel's Productions proudly presents Lauren's Necklace, A Link with the Past. Back in 2017, Lauren Thomas did a tutorial on creating a chain assembly in Modo. See the link below to check out her original. I would rather listen to her voice than mine, and you may too. This morsel builds on Lauren's foundations, but does some things in slightly different ways. In particular, towards the end, I explore a couple of procedural techniques for removing links from the chain. So, to start, we need to create our chain links. It will be a bit fancy. Well, okay, it's going to look like this. The link is created by sweeping a circle along a path. So first we need a path along which to sweep. Create a new mesh and give it a sensible or otherwise name. I'm going to use a cube as my starting point for the curve. There is method in my madness. Add the cube operator to the mesh and make it flat by zeroing out the Z dimension. Then make it a reasonable size for a chain link. These ones are going to be relatively chunky. I'm going to round off the edges and add some segments in the Y direction to give me more geometry to work with. Next, let's add some shape to the link by pushing in the edges using a transform effector and fall off. Add the transform, then add a linear fall off in the Y direction, then adjust its size. We want the fall off to be bidirectional, so check the mirror option. Now we can scale in the sides. This shape looks a bit sharp, so let's change the decay shape of the fall off to smooth. There, that looks nice. Well, we can't sweep along a polygonal shape, so we need to convert it into a curve. Fortunately, we have just the tool for the job. Add the edges to curves operation to the stack and select spline curves. Then select delete geometry so that we are left with just the new curve. There is a problem. We only want curves for the outside of the shape. That's where select by border comes into play. The work of the fall off is done. We don't need to look at it ever again. Finally, I'll create a group to hold all the bits that belong to the link creation. Your future self will thank you if you keep your creations tidy. What were we doing again? Oh yes, we need another mesh with a circle in it to sweep along our beautiful curve. Create a new mesh and name it. Then add the circle operation and set its orientation and size appropriately. Now the best bit. Add a curve extrude operation and link it to the curve we prepared earlier. Beautiful. Okay, it's a bit lumpy, but we can fix that by setting the polygon type to Catmull-Clark. Actually, I think it could do with some more steps. I like that shape better. The final piece of housekeeping is to get rid of that circle. This is not really necessary, but it serves to show some of the power of the selection system. Adding a delete operator deletes everything by default, not exactly what we want. But I can use select by previous operation to select the output from the curve extrude, exactly the opposite of what I actually want to delete, and then I can add an invert to the selection so that we delete everything except for the extrusion. And that concludes the link construction. Remember, this is all live, so we can go back and change things if we are unhappy with the shape that we have made. But who'd be unhappy with that shape? Now we need to create a chain from our links. The approach we will take is to create particles along a curve and to feed those particles into a replicator using the link as the prototype. Step 1. Create a mesh containing a semi-decent looking curve for our necklace. Remember, Everything is procedural, so the detail doesn't matter. Will you stop fiddling with that curve? It doesn't matter. Now, bring up the schematic view and drag the curve mesh into it. I seem to have got a little more than I bargained for here. Soon fixed though. Now we need to add the curve particle generator and connect it to the curve mesh. Next, add the replicator and connect that to the output of the curve particle generator. Finally, we just need to grab our link mesh for our prototype and connect it to the replicator, and the chain is nearly done. While we're at it, let's change the display properties to make sure that the replicants are always shown. There are some minor adjustments we need to do. We need more links and we need them to be pointing in the right direction. Change the forward axis for the curve particle generator to Y, and now the links are aligned correctly. Then increase the count so that they overlap slightly. You may have spotted a flaw in the design of the chain. All the links are aligned in the same direction. Ideally, we would like to rotate them so that they link together properly. A particle step modifier can help here. It applies transformations incrementally to a set of particles in the order of their IDs. Fortunately, the curve particle generator generates particles with IDs in order along the curve. I'm sure it's probably just a coincidence. Now we need to rotate the links by 90 degrees for each step. So the total angle we want will be the number of particles multiplied by 90. Drag the Y rotation channel of the particle step modifier into the schematic. Add the particle count to the schematic, then multiply it by 90 and feed that into the rotation channel of the particle modifier. Looks good. We could just leave it at that, but it's a bit on the regular side. Adding some random variation will make it look a bit more natural. We can do that with a random modifier. Adding a random modifier into the pipeline creates complete chaos because the position is being randomly changed too. Dialing that back to 0 tames the unruly beast. Setting the Y rotation value to, say, 20 degrees introduces some variation. We could crank it up to even more, I guess. 40 doesn't seem unreasonable. So now the tricksy bit. I want to add some beads or gems to the necklace. While you weren't looking, I've added my bead mesh and added some materials to the links and to the bead itself. To add the beads to the necklace, we can use a new curve particle generator, feed that into a replicator, but this time with the bead as the prototype. We don't want all of them, so let's adjust the start and end percentages to get just 4 of them, or however many you want. The problem is that the links go straight through the beads, and we need to filter them out. It would be nice to do this in a procedural way, so that we can make changes to the model without too much rework. I'm going to leverage texture replicators and texture fall-offs to crack this nut. Add a constant texture into the nodes folder and drag it into the schematic. Expand out its texture locator and then connect the curve particle generator to it. You can see it now in the properties just here. Adjust the particle size to roughly the size of the beads. Set the constant value to 0%. We can now use these in a texture fall-off and filter out the links that we don't want using a particle sieve. Last but not least, we will need to tell the sieve to use the fall-off that we connected. It's close, but no cigar. The sense of the test is wrong. So flip that less than to a greater than and all should be well. There is another way. We will hide the links by setting their dissolve attribute to 100%. Stick a basic particle modifier into the chain of particle modifiers and enable dissolve. This gives us access to a gradient which we can edit to set the dissolve value for any part of the chain. Note that the advanced viewport doesn't use the dissolve value, so to see what you are doing, use the preview render instead. Now just key in the regions where we want the links as 0% dissolve and where we don't want them, 100% dissolve. So that's it. A whirlwind tour of necklace construction. This is a video I've been wanting to do ever since Lawrence came out in 2017. Better late than never, I suppose. And remember, keep on miming.